Hello, everyone. Welcome to an awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FM Training TV, where every day is an awesome day. You learn about the Claris FileMaker platform. It is Friday. Today is the last day of the server conversation, because after today, all of you should be super experts and build your own amazing server without any additional help. That's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie. So, however, because we want all of you to be successful, and I mean that seriously, feel free to shoot us an email to support@rcconsulting.com if you have a server question, or there people don't know that we're doing this live stream and they keep sending us emails about their server issue. Wait, I got an email last night, maybe from one of you, and Jacob saw it this morning, I'm sure, and the person goes, "Hey, so I've been watching a lot of videos and stuff, and you guys are kind of experts, which is good, so send us an email. Thank you for that." He goes, I had an on-premise FileMaker server. Then they put it in the cloud, and the performance is not very good. What should I do? Remember that, Jacob? And it's like, so we covered that either Monday or Tuesday, the conversation on this. So what we're going to do real quick. So as a reminder, all of you are getting free training. We really appreciate it if you would support the channel with be a Patreon or a Patriot or something like that. And you go to the bundle, and you come over here and purchase one of the basic, plus, or complete training bundles. And that allows us to put a couple bucks in the piggy bank. So we know it's free. We know you don't have to pay for this, but if you do this, I greatly, at a personal level, I appreciate you like you. Some of you appreciate me. Some of you hate me. That's fine, but you're still here, which I find weird. What I want to do is have a quick test for David Angels. David Angel. So what causes FileMaker? So if the internet goes the speed of light, then how come my computers don't work with electricity at the speed of light? So what's the major thing, at least part of our conversation today, slows FileMaker down? It's not using a server speeds up or slows it down. It can, but that's not really the underlying thing. So David Angel, can you give me any answer for that? We're going to cover this real quick, because there are people here today who don't know this. Hardware speed limit, speed of light. Yeah. So when data goes through the internet, it hits little spots where it's blocked. It's like a stop. It's like if you had a freeway, everyone the internet's like a freeway, right? And it's all great. The cars are flowing along at the speed of light until there is the need to direct traffic or redirect traffic, and say that on the freeway, there's a stoplight. And you're like, holy, really? Yeah, there are times when you have to be on a freeway and suddenly they don't call it a freeway anymore, but you're still on 8 lanes of travel, and there's a giant ass red light there in the United States. It's red. and what happens is that's what routers are in the internet. They slow the traffic. What they do is they direct the traffic, but in order to direct the traffic, they have to slow it down, read where it is and where it's going, and then they do some magical redirection of the send it. But it takes time for it to slow it down and read it. That's what this latency stuff is, really, at the end of the day. That's literally what it is. So latency is a slowdown in generally measured milliseconds of your traffic. If your database, okay, back up, everyone. If the database is on your computer and you're not sharing it with anyone, it's as fast as it ever can be. That is the maximum amount of Millennium Falcon speed. Okay, the Millennium Falcon speed of light. Then you say, well, I'm going to put it on a server, and the server is on a computer next to me. So if I'm sitting here at my desk, and then sitting over here is another computer, right? You have a computer, and there's a PC next to me, the left and the right and everything else. That's where this stuff slows down. And so you put it on FileMaker Server, but there's a delay as it goes across the network from one computer to the next. Then the computer is upstairs on the 5th floor, and you're on the 1st floor. It slows down a little more. It goes across town. So if you have a FileMaker server that's in the building and you move it across town, it might be 7 times slower. Now, you might never notice that if everything's running around at the speed of light. Now it's 1/7 the speed of light. Does any of us drive our cars or aircraft or missiles that fast? No, we don't have anything that goes that fast. Well, I'm going to go 1/7 the speed of light. It's so fast you still don't notice it. But if you had something that was marginally slow already, and then you make it 1/7 as fast, then it's a measurable slowdown. And that's the conversation that gentleman asked us about. We talked about this Monday and Tuesday. So anyway, so just understand that. Send us an email. We can't cover everything, but we want to answer as many questions as possible. And if I keep getting the same questions, we will come back and hit it again. So previously on the show, we're talking about Amazon. We set up a server on Amazon, a virtual server. Margaret, is called a what on Amazon?
An instance.
Okay, it's a one server, a virtual server on Amazon's an instance. When I say virtual server, Amazon buys giant refrigerator-sized servers. They sell slices of that server. It's much more efficient for them to do that. So when you're renting a server, it's not like, hey, there's a Windows server sitting over here. Like, here's my Windows server right here, sitting here. It's all sitting here running and doing its thing. There it goes. It wakes up. That's not what you're getting a slice of it. It seems like it, but that's not what you're getting. You're getting just 1/100th or whatever it is of that big refrigerator. So yesterday we set up that server, and today where Jacob set it up, and today we're going to install FileMaker Server on. So first thing we would do is to tell it to build out. Amazon built the server. We put 4 hard drives on it that we can see right there. Then we have to say, hey, let's find the FileMaker Server installer, and we double click and we go, and which is where we are right here. So this is where I shut up and let Jacob run. So.
Oh, and I even copied the wrong one. It's cool. I meant to have a copy of Pro here, and then I picked the wrong one over here. Hold on.
Can you run Pro and Server on the same computer?
Yeah, but
you
not
can?
not for P2P sharing purposes, which we do not endorse.
Okay, so yeah, real quick for everyone. So there is a legacy feature that Claris has actively said they are removing from the product.
Yeah.
They should have removed it already, but they haven't. It's called peer-to-peer sharing, or where FileMaker Pro shares to another copy of FileMaker Pro. That is giving you a little bit of collaborative capability, but there's no backups, no redundancy, no encryption, all the important things you need with a server. You don't have that.
Yeah. Theoretically, it is good for testing, and I am doing air quotes here just for people only listening. I don't even consider it good for testing because it's honestly pretty hard to use. And for anyone that really wants to test it, you should test it on a server because that's how it's going to be in production.
Yes.
If you're a lone sole developer or something like that, I think you can still get FDS these days, FileMaker Developer Subscription.
Yes.
The price went up or whatever, but who cares? It's a cheap license for like a seat of each kind. Again, perfect for testing. You can do your WebDirect, you can do your Go, you can do your Pro. If you're, playing with stuff or getting stuff ready for customer deployments and stuff like that. So
the important part of that, and Jacob touched on this, but he drove by it really rapidly. If you build something locally on your computer, and then you put it on the FileMaker server, it will probably work nearly identical, if not identical. It'll be pretty damn good. So you don't have to worry about it. Whoa, it doesn't work anymore. It's on the server. No, pretty much it's going to work. The problem is that you have a misrepresentation of what the performance is likely to be because it's running locally on your computer. You need to put it on the server. Well, I'll put it on the server next to my desk on my desk. You need to put it kind of where the real server is going to be.
Yeah.
And that way you can feel if it starts to struggle because you have latency. It slows down.
It's a good thing to note, just like with the example of the person who emailed in, like one of the big issues we have, and I always recommend this as an engineering consideration, like improving your FileMaker database applications architecture structure so that it's better performance, so that you get better performance out of it. The reason I usually address that first before going, oh, you need a bigger server, oh, those kinds of upgrades, is because a lot of the times, especially in a case like this where the customer was an on-site server originally, they had, I'm being somewhat impolite here, but bad engineering inside their solution that was covered up by the fact that they probably had a 100 megabit or gigabit connection between any of the client computers on site in the office, whatever, and that FileMaker server. And so for parts of FileMaker where the limitation fundamentally is like how fast can you shoot records back and forth across the network because you're doing different things. That's the limitation, the fundamental one. Those are going to get really slow, really fast if you have any substantial network latency. When you put the server out on the internet, it might be pretty quick. You might be really close to Amazon or whatever host you've chosen, but it's not zero, and it's fundamentally and functionally almost zero when you're on site. And so you will have slowdowns in the application basically in its general operation that just weren't noticeable because you were on site and you were already really close to the server.
Absolutely. You kind of cover over that issue, right?
Yep.
You're bad. Margaret, just real quick, can you show the progressional learning real quick? Jacob's going to double click and install this here and get this going. But Mark, can you show the progressional learning real quick on your computer? Hit the button. So when you're at this level over here, everyone, and this is such an important thing. If you're building, and we're talking to all of you here, so this is a manager over here on the left. You're brand new. You barely use FileMaker. And if you get it to work at all, you're happy, and it's running on your computer and you're happy, you have a very happy little smile there. That's you got a smile, you're very happy. Okay. And then you start to use it and people say, hey, can we use that too? So you put it on a server. And what happens is that as you put more people on it, the data set, the bigger, more number of records happen. And then you put it on a server somewhere up on the cloud, things that you could get away with here running it locally on your computer that maybe not great, but you notice them here. They start to be noticeable. And so that's kind of why we train the way we do here. So yeah, I just restated what Jacob already stated. So Margaret, if you want to throw him back, but yeah.
All right. So
there we go.
Prereqs, we have a FileMaker server. This one is a Windows Server 2022. That is the latest version of Windows Server that current in-market FileMaker Server supports. We are, I believe, expecting the next version, which is going to be FileMaker 2025 or FileMaker Server 22 technical version. We are expecting that to support Windows Server 2025, which is the biggest question I get about this stuff, especially for on-site clients. In the cloud, you can pick whatever you want. First. Second, I'm going to explain a little bit. So in the previous stream yesterday, we made 4 different hard drives. They're labeled here on screen. You can see them. The reason that we do that is for cost savings, actually. On especially Windows machines, but just in general with FileMaker servers. If you have tiny amounts of data, I'm talking a gigabyte database or a gigabyte container data, none of the stuff matters, honestly, because you can get away with whatever the heck you want. You don't have that much data. As soon as you start talking 10, 20 gigabytes of documents or photos or whatever inside your FileMaker solution, anything bigger than that, of course, it becomes an immediate and sometimes massive cost savings not to have a bunch of copies of that stuff around. And so we address backups for large data sets like that in a different way. Everyone always asks about snapshots and stuff like that. We don't endorse them for various reasons, but that's why. That's why I call it a split container setup. Kind of describes what we're doing here. I'm going to show setting that up today once we're do our double clicking here.
The double click. There we go. So we are installing FileMaker Server. It's
extracting. It's going to run the installer in a moment.
Green like a frog. It's extracting frog sauce. There we go.
Pops out all of its dependencies, which it has a few.
Yep.
You pretty much just click yes on most of this stuff. You'll get the software installed. There's a couple things in here that are optional. We usually install them, but it doesn't really matter that much either way. One is actually, I think, the last thing in this process, which is Bonjour. That allows for local network FileMaker server discovery.
Yeah.
We're up in the cloud, so the local networks between some cloud computers and, well, there's no others actually, but if there were, maybe you'd be doing that. And so in general, it just doesn't apply. It's a relevant consideration for on-site customers though, especially if you have I'll say your pro clients, but these are the Windows PCs that are running that stuff or whatever. If you have that all on the same local network or something like that, it's helpful because you'll be able to go into the hosts menu of Pro and see your FileMaker server. You don't necessarily have to program the host in and stuff like that. It's helpful. Those are more durable if you do it that way, but it's not strictly speaking necessary. So,
okay. So it's installing Microsoft.
So this is IIS, Internet Information Services. This is Apache or Nginx elsewhere. Windows uses IIS. I think the next version actually maybe this version on an early basis. There will be an Nginx facility on Windows where you'll be able to use that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, don't use IIS, use Nginx on Windows instead. That will, I think, let us do the HTTP transport that we won't probably really cover too much today.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
But it'll let you do that on Windows, I think that's the goal there. So
yeah, so when you say IIS, for those of you that is the web server. So you have a web browser. Where does web browsers get their data? Generally, they get it from a web server that sends you the HTML pages.
And then that web server often is some kind of, I'll call it an intermediary. Like you're talking to it, but it's talking to other stuff. I'll say behind it in the process. So you connect to FM Training TV, you're talking to one of our servers, and that has a web server on it. And it is a web server, but it has other programs in the background running. For example, PHP, if you go to PSA, that's a dynamically generated page in the PHP programming language. And so there's a PHP that runs behind it, and you've asked for PSA or some other page on our site that requires some kind of customization like that. And so that'll do some stuff, generate the page, and then in this case, our web server, that's the equivalent of this IIS software, relays it back to you. The same thing is true here on FileMaker Server. For example, for WebDirect. WebDirect is a backend process that runs behind on Windows behind IIS. And so you send it a request for like the home page or for the database that you're trying to log into, whatever. And it does things, talks to FileMaker Server, thinks about stuff, checks logins, whatever it needs to be doing, and then sends relevant replies back to you. But it does that. It sends it to IIS. IIS sends it to you, or to your browser.
All right.
A quick question. Do you use physical servers near you as you build apps for quick speeds, or do you just use the cloud?
We use the cloud.
Well, yeah.
I think everyone picks their own stuff, to be honest. But
yeah, but I would use the cloud. But goes back to the conversation from Tuesday, I think, and that was that we pick a cloud. Part of setting up Amazon is picking a server location, a cloud location. The cloud, listen, the cloud is a cloud is kind of true, and it's also bullshit, right? To be clear, because there are data centers everywhere. They keep making little baby data centers in smaller areas so that when people are accessing data, it goes to the local, they call them like edge locations, but it's, the idea is that there's a magical cloud. It's all abstracted. Yeah, negative. So, because
it's just somebody else's computer. You're paying a little overhead on for the cloud, and they manage and do all the power and all the other management stuff for you. And so you can decide if you want to do that. Some customers pick on-site, and then they take on all of that.
Yeah. So I do Amazon, easy too, but we pick a server that's close to where either the customer is or the development. So Big Valley Aviation is based in California. Their server is US West 1 or US West 2 or whatever it is. Is that Oregon or is that San Jose?
One is NorCal. Yeah, it's like Santa Clara basically.
Okay.
2 is the Oregon kind of Portland area.
So they're in Stockton. The server's in Santa Clara. That's about 80, 90, 100 miles, something like that, distance from the server. So in the scheme of things, pretty close. And to be clear about it, in the future, the cloud will be the same speed as local. Yeah, maybe Steve Jobs was talking about that about 10 years, 15 years before he died, and he's been dead for a while now. So that continues to be a thought, but it's not yet manifest itself.
Yeah, I'll be honest. There's parts of that won't ever be true, because to deliver that, you have to restructure how your application functions. And FileMaker Server, as a product, at least today, is a thing that runs on a single physical machine. And if you want to geo-distribute that, which is kind of that's what you're describing, is multiple FileMaker servers that are being kept in sync, behind the scenes or something like that. You could build something like that with mirror sync, but if you're really going to do that, you're talking about 100 FileMaker servers at various edge locations. It's not a thing that just magically scales laterally like some other application environments and database systems do, where sure, you can have 1,000 copies of it, like that's fine, and it's built for that. FileMaker Server isn't really built for that. It tends to be a one server thing, or a couple servers, or maybe geo-distributed, like I said, one per continent or something like this.
Yeah, we've done
for
that.
A large customer that wants to write, they need to write a consequently large check for all that hosting. That's basically like the problem. It isn't a lot of things in like Amazon. If there's certain services you can get where you put a little code and it's serverless. And that actually doesn't mean any of that. It means your code's running inside of a server somewhere. It's just that it can run on 10,000 servers simultaneously. And Amazon allows you to ignore the technical details for how that happens.
They abstract all that out of there. Yeah. The tech they abstract. You just run the code. So Ghost Robot, if you have questions, obviously, please ask us, because that's why we're here. So this is a server that was set up yesterday. It's an Amazon T3 large or whatever the hell it is, right? And so it's technically this one is a 2-core 8 gig machine. So it's a little.
Yes, it is.
I don't really at a personal level like servers that are less than 16 gigs, but I think 8 gigs can be okay. It just depends on what you're asking. What's
under 10 users and not that much data. That's It's fine. That's our development servers are that big. RCC's is not. RCC's has a 4-core, real 4-core, and 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. I
I
forget.
think you're up to 32 now. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So we're going through the setup. Let's continue this. It says,
So, yep. So we're going to leave it at the default directory. You can
Mhm.
move this stuff. Some on-site customers do that. I don't really care. I tend to put the applications on the C drive and then put everything else somewhere else.
Okay.
We're going to show you additional database directory usage today and a split container configuration.
Okay,
So
good.
I'm just going to leave that. It's a primary machine because we are not setting up a WebDirect secondary either today or in general. We're going to leave this at the default. You can technically run this under other system users. I, for various reasons, don't recommend that. I don't honestly know how well that's tested. And also you get some security benefits from leaving this at the default. In specifically modern Windows, if you run it as a local system, it's annoying. There's a bunch of things FileMaker can't do. That's good because it means if you have a problem, the box is locked.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we're going to do that. That's going to turn off. There's like a default website that it installed earlier.
Okay.
That was on.
And then the
we're gonna
license key.
Except that we're not even putting one in, so it's just going to ask me. Let's see if someone emails us to yell. Yes, I know, correct. All right, it's telling me that we didn't have a license certificate, which is true. Now I get to report a bug to them because you shouldn't have asked for the organization if you're not going to take a license certificate.
Yeah.
We're going to put our super secure password in here.
Okay.
Super secure PIN. The PIN is the 4-digit PIN. It's only used locally on the command line on the FileMaker server itself in the offhand case that you forget the actual password. It's the only time it's used.
Got it.
There's an FMS admin reset PW. I'll call it one word. And it'll ask you for the PIN, and then it'll let you set a new admin console password like master one or whatever.
Yep.
So next and go.
Okay, so now it's running an installation. Questions. Let's see, Discord questions. Margaret, YouTube, Twitch.
Not particularly. People are being
Where do you get the PIN? Now the PIN is your own PIN.
You set the PIN.
Yeah, it's basically like if you forget the password, then this is like the backup PIN to get into it, right?
Yeah, it's your official backdoor, officially supported backdoor.
Yeah, officially supported.
But again,
backdoor.
but again, you can only be on the server. So whoever's doing this, you have to be like on the FileMaker server, like we are. We're remoted into it, sure, but like that, you have to be on it. It's the same thing for Linux, and Mac.
Yeah.
So we set it for customers. Sometimes we tell them. Sometimes they tell us what PIN they want.
Yeah, it's a little different than the PIN you have on the Microsoft Windows 11 installation, right? It seems to me, but yeah, because people. Okay, so now it's okay. So did
now
it
we're
install?
On. Yep. Now
So this is the browser front end to the FileMaker server software, which is running as a service on this machine. It's actually multiple services on this machine.
Yep.
So, okay.
I need to save that. So I can do two things. I'm going to show you. We talked services. So there's a Windows services panel. I typed start menu and I just typed services in, and there's 7 different ways to do anything in Windows. So don't get hung up on locating it. So we have one. I'm going to call it service, right? FileMaker server service. You can see that's selected here, but y'all may be.
I normally use Task Manager. Yeah, that's
so if you go to Task Manager, that service has a bunch of different parts. There's a script engine, there's a server, there's a backup server. The helper actually runs everything. You see how that one's connected to the actual overarching service.
Okay, yeah.
This node thing, this is actually the admin console in this case. We haven't done a Java setup, so we don't have a Java program, but if we turned on Web Presentation Engine and or Dropbox, WebDirect, then you'd have a Java process running also. All of those are still just FileMaker server service, but each component runs in its own environment, runtime, like
if the server runs a script for you, all sorts of stuff. So there's that too. So understand that when we say FileMaker server, and this goes for Mac, Windows, and Linux, it's a little pile, little handful of separate programs that are running invisibly in the background called a service or a daemon or whatever it is on Linux and Unix. But yeah, so okay. So once again, we're not going to spend a ton of time on SSL because we think this is probably going to change over the next, say, 2 or 3 months, right?
Yeah, within the next financial quarter.
Yeah. So,
so we're on our landing screen. We're on a trial, so our thingy lasts, I don't know, 45 days. Because I didn't put a license certificate in here earlier, which you saw that I noted. Same thing, we get a 1-year test SSL. This will validate in 0 browsers. You will have to fight, if you're on Safari or something like that, you'll have to fight your browser, but the others generally allow you some kind of an override or no, I know, I understand what I'm doing. I'm trying to do that. They're just yelling at you because it's insecure, which is true.
okay.
So latest version here, quick tour, same thing. We have our little sample database that's here. It's automatically installed and open. You can turn that off. We actually do that on our own actual cloud deploys when we're doing this in a more automated fashion. It comes with our one keep 7, yes, daily backup that runs at midnight, and it shows it here. You could force a backup here. You can pin stuff. Or preserve, sorry, but it's pinning a backup. It's holding it off to the side so it doesn't get deleted.
Okay.
We have a few backup settings that we can go through. These are all the same across all the platforms. Progressive backups are useful. They run every 5 minutes. They are incremental, which means that the very first time you run it, it's going to write a whole database copy out, or if you have a bunch of files, whatever. And then from that point, every 5 minutes, it collects up 5 minutes of changes and writes those on instead of shooting a whole new file out. If your file is big or something like that, it won't do that. Parallel backups are useful in a couple scenarios. One, a big multi-file solution, like lots of files or lots of files, like both meanings of that. Large actual file count, or large files as in you have, like 25 or 30 files as part of a multi-file solution, and some of them are physically like gigabytes large or something.
Okay.
Canceled backups. If a backup fails, you can keep the copy of the database set aside. That mostly causes problems for us, so I don't really turn it on ever, but I'm sure it's useful to somebody.
Okay, before we jump to the
Yeah.
next item, go ahead, Margaret, ask that question.
In AWS, you could only connect to Windows Server through RDP?
I don't know the answer to that question. What other way would you want to access it?
SSH, like on Linux?
No. I mean, you could install your own applications that do that, yeah. You could like do an FTP server. I've set that up for clients for remote access. There's probably an SSH daemon that runs on Windows somewhere, correct? You might even be able to do it through some of the Windows terminal services. I absolutely would never do that though, because that means you're exposing those things to the internet, and you should avoid that at all costs, frankly. That sort of thing could be probably made safe if you made, I'll call it a VPN 0T or something like this, between your local client computer and the remote system, so that there's no actual exposure.
Okay, you can.
To answer David's question directly, if you disable remote desktop and Windows Server, will you get blocked? You will be unable to access your server. Yes, you should avoid that. Do not do that.
Okay, you can whitelist who can access it, but
yes.
Okay.
There's a security group in Amazon, which is the firewall that's outside of the server. That is your containment layer. Most people that work with on-site servers, and it makes my skin crawl. They completely turn the Windows firewalls off. It's wild to me. But it's because they address that security issue somewhere else, which is they have a firewalling software integrated with the antivirus or something like that. We leave our servers, I'll say, at default, which means we encourage specifically Windows Defender. It is the only antivirus that is well and properly integrated with Windows and doesn't slow everything down. For example, when you have a billion container files or something like that. I have a client that has their container data directory alone has 4.5 million files. Backing that up is a bear.
So real quick. But this is a relevant question, and we haven't touched on it too much. So there's the remote access to the FileMaker server. We used SSH on Wednesday to do that to a Linux
remote
server.
Desktop for Windows.
Remote desktop for Windows. Now, that's just to get to the machine. To actually administer the machine, there's the web browser, this interface here, but there's also command line on the computer. Some things can only be done on the command line, right?
Correct. Yep.
So if we were going to administer the command, and I'll get rid of the graphic, if we're going to, we're actually on the computer, not remotely, right? That's what I'm saying. So this looks kind of like command line with SSH, but we're actually on
It's
the
command line
desktop.
locally on the server, but
Yeah.
the server's remote from us, correct?
Yes. And so now we're going to do, we could do command line to set, well, let's go ahead and do it right now, just for some giggles. So we know the most common one, we did it the other day, was the RAM cache. The RAM cache is a big performance thing. It used to be a menu option in the web browser that you see over here, the web browser, it's over here. It used to be a command line over here, or it used to be a graphical thing. But now we have to set that with the command line. It's the same on Mac and Windows and Linux. It got long story and a bunch of political bullshit. And yeah, and makes me mad even recounting the story. But where is it? See, database is this one right here, cache size. Right?
Cache size.
This will have a huge impact because the default setting on this is generally pretty small. And you're going to want to be able to change that as part of your installation. So after you install FileMaker Server, you're going to put the databases on it. You're going to set the backups, and then you're going to set the backup cache over here. Okay, that makes sense, everyone? So anyway.
So first thing we always change on any FileMaker server, disabling auto open database.
Yes.
You have to have my elevator speech, or you're legally required
already
to sit
did
through
this.
it. Yep. Yes. It damages, it has the risk of damaging the database because you don't know why it went off. If you are the one that shut it, and that is the only reason your server could ever shut down, good luck with that. Then okay, you could have this feature on, but don't actually do that because servers don't have problems shutting down when it's you went in, you kicked everybody out, you closed the file down, unless there's something going awful, whatever. But like in the general case, like you go close the files, reboot the server, cool, then you're there. It'll be up in a minute or two maybe, and you can go open the database files again. It's fine. That's safe. There's no issue with that at all. The reason that we don't automatically open the databases is because the reason it went down and you're finding out about it by someone calling you is because it didn't go down on purpose. The lost power, the process crashed, whatever similar
lost power.
issues.
The janitor in the middle of the night plugged a vacuum
in. That's
into
a famous
the battery
one.
backup and blew it up. And I'm telling you, you folks think that's funny.
Very real. It's been done since I worked here.
Once upon a time, Margaret was this big and was crawling around the floor. Actually, my son was. He was in the office. We had servers in the office. He went and they had the big little, the APC battery backups, and he's crawling along the floor under the server rack because how much trouble can a 1-year-old get into or 2-year-old can get in under the server rack? And they and suddenly I started all my lights going off. Every server died. And I'm like, what the fuck? And my kid's in there pushing the power off buttons on every battery backup. And we're like, and so then we ended up putting cardboard over the buttons and taping it so they couldn't push the button. So crazy. Another reason I have Amazon, your kid can't get in there and shut it off on you and blow up your customer server. So, but that's what Jacob's saying here. So yeah, great.
Yep.
Another question. What is the AWS Systems Manager, SSM, ?
That's what it sounds like. It's a completely automated Windows Server management system built into Amazon.
Is it something we mess with or no?
Not really?
No.
I use it to query built into our deployer. I use it to query the latest version of the Windows image, for example, when we because we always want a fresh copy of Windows Server 2022 or whatever. We use it for that. There is theoretically, you can actually use it for automated Windows management, which is what it sounds like. It's the same thing that all of our on-site clients do, where they apply Windows updates automatically, reboot the systems automatically. You just heard why that's potentially bad, because obviously if you're in that situation, then you need the databases to come back up automatically because you're not the one choosing to do that. Again, that's a problem. Don't do that. This specific version of FileMaker Server is the very first one ever in the history of the product that Claris has ever said you can do that. Like you can reboot for Windows updates safely. We don't endorse that. It's the first version they've ever said that about. So
yeah, 30 years
be careful.
The other way, yeah.
Be safe. That's my elevator pitch.
Okay.
They've introduced some other safety features. I'll just note them quickly. This persistent cache setting, I'm interested in this. It's mostly for the case where FileMaker Server, the specific process on the server, dies. And it'll try and put your stuff back together again. That sounds dangerous. It might be. We don't know. The reason I want to note it is because some of the on-site clients who, consider high reliability to be an interest, they'll turn stuff like that on. My be careful is not just because it could, I don't know, break your database when it tries to put it back together or something like that. We don't know. But my be careful really is because that thing uses half of your server-side cache for its recovery. Like it has an extra copy of the records, the recently changed records and stuff. And so when you turn that on, you cut your RAM cache in half without, I mean, you can see it's not noted. There's nothing here that says that. You just have to know that. So if you're leaving your FileMaker server at default, we haven't configured the RAM cache to be, a gig or two or something else so far, then you're at 256 megabytes. That's not enough for anybody's database.
Yeah, no, it's not good. So real quick on this, go back to that. Can you go back to that little, no, yeah, just give it, so what Jacob's talking about here is, so historically, actually scroll to the top and let me just editorialize. This is really important. Scroll to the top real quick. Let's just hang out. We're on configuration. We're on the top configuration here, top setting here. So database is running, check. Start time, check. Server time, IP address, check. That's check. Go and scroll down, Mr. Taylor, for me. Okay, scroll down. That's good. English language. Scroll down. Is that okay? Now here we go. So let's look at this. Now, this is to make sure that we don't open a database that might be damaged, right? Doesn't say that, but that's why we turn this off. Only open the last open databases. That to me, I don't even understand that. Well, okay, never mind. That's stupid. That's fine.
If you have auto on,
yeah,
we just recommend against, and you have some of your files closed, it won't reopen the closed ones when it comes back up again.
Yeah, if like you have 10 databases, 5 are shut down, but they're still on the server.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's that option. So that's kind of, whatever, that's fine. Automatically start database server. Fine. So this spins up this should say the server service is what that, to be clear, that would be more clear. Start the database server service. Automatically start the web publishing engine service. Okay, another service word there. Okay, which means that's that part of that task manager thing. Fine, turn that on. Okay, now this is the part that Jacob had. I'm going to hammer on this, and can you hit that dialogue right there again? Okay, the little that one right there. Okay, persistent cache. Okay, a big ass. See that? It may protect the database files from corruption in the event that FileMaker servers quit. This is I would call this a prototype capability. This is the second or third time Claris has tried to build this. The first 2 times resulted in bad shit happening. Okay, we'll just say that it wasn't sufficiently well tested by Claris, and I don't trust it. I don't want anything bad to happen to my database. This is why if the server restarts,
turn everything off.
Yes, and I don't want this thing on because it says they left the word may out, but it's absolutely may, and they would say may if you talk to them. Persistent cache may protect the database from corruption in the event that files are quit. The situation where this protects your database is probably, if you had 5 crashes, 1 out of 5 might be protected by this. So it's like, why bother with that?
FileMaker server falls over. It goes, oh, I fell over, restarts itself, looks at the file on disk, which again, that's crashed. That's a crash. You just crashed. You're crashing. You
potentially, yes, yeah.
It looks at that file, which is hopefully not terribly damaged. We're hoping. We don't know. Compares recent changes to that file, because you've enabled this feature. Again, this is why I said it splits the RAM cache in half. One half is the RAM cache, the one that you're expecting to use that speeds up application operation on the server side by keeping hot things ready to go. And then the other one, it's keeping an extra copy of all of those changes. Okay. And then it looks at this crashed file it's just started poking around with and tries to fix it, put it together, and make sure not too many of those recently changed records are missing or, damaged, blah, 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 whatever. If all of what I just said goes perfectly, it will run a consistency check. And then if that fundamentally passes, which is a very narrow check, there's not gross negligent levels of damage in the structure. Notice I said recovery is about the records. The structure is what the consistency check is. So that may or may not pass. If it does, it only means the structure is not damaged, probably, or not grossly anyway. It'll open the file. If anything fails, it doesn't open the file. So you're back where you started. With a potentially damaged FMP12, and you may restore from backups. That should be the correct Like that's the correct action.
Yeah, I'm
to
about
do
to
each
hit
time.
that real quick. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all this stuff is like, don't do it, don't do it. If the FileMaker server dies, what is we haven't said this point blank. If the FileMaker server dies and you didn't shut it down and you didn't watch it happen, the process is that you take the live files, we put them out on the desktop. I ran an arrow there on the desktop here, and we take the last good backup, we move it in here, and we use the last good backup. So you need to have a backup that's 10 minutes old or 15 minutes old, and maybe you lose 10 or 15 minutes of data. For most companies, that's fine. They probably didn't lose anything, okay? This is the accepted procedure, okay? Everyone is a professionally successful developer. They do it the way I just said. You set the crash aside, you grab a backup copy. A backup was made, you know it's good, and you use that. Well, I lost 10 minutes of database. Well, yeah, but then you didn't run the risk of putting damage into the database, right? Because when the file is running and you pull the plug on it, the file may be damaged, period.
And you have to, the decision you have to make is like cost and overhead for running backups and stuff like that. Like that's a consideration if your file's pretty large or something like this. The way I basically address that though is, are you willing to, you have to figure out how much data you're willing to lose. It's a thing to talk about, right? Because for some businesses, they don't move that fast. They may not lose anything. They may lose a little bit. Some people have huge automated imports going all the time and stuff like that. They need to have more frequent backups.
Yes.
And the reason for that though is because again, it's what does it cost you to lose versus damage in the database. Damage in the database is human labor to figure out where it is, excise it, rebuild the modules, re-import it takes weeks. You're down while that's happening if it's bad enough that it causes the file to be inoperable.
Yes.
You have a huge expensive problem, and it's like lose 5 minutes of data or be down for weeks. Reconstructing
potentially down the road, right? Because that's the rub. Yeah.
Okay, you want so it cost, right? Little pain now, tiny bit, sure. Yeah, you probably lose a little data. Okay. But tiny bits of pain now to go to a known good copy versus having a potential implication in the future that's like at scale in dollars. So,
and I know this conversation freaks people out, but if you just restore from the backup every time,
that's
then
why
you're never going to have a problem. And then you
run
the backup.
The simplest recommendation possible. Always restore from backups.
Always restore from the backup. Well, what if I don't have a backup? Then you
solve that problem first.
So you need to have the backup at least once an hour. Okay, there we go.
So we're going to go in here. This is a new setting that defaults on. Basically, before you go look at your stuff, it'll ask you what credential you have if you're logging into a database. It'll only show you databases on the server where you have access. It's kind of neat. Folders. This is what I want to demonstrate for customizing database locations on a FileMaker server. Again, for this, to go back to it, split container configuration. We made folders yesterday. So like the D drive, I have a FileMaker data. I already have some daily, hourly, I made some folders and stuff. And then we have a container data folder over here. These are database FMP12 backups and then container data respectively. So we're going to come in here. This is the folders area. We're on configuration in folders. You can change the default location if you wish. Some of my clients do that. Some of them don't. It can be helpful. I'm going to turn on the additional database directory and configure it. So we're going to go with, and this is the fun part. There's a file Win. There's a file Mac. I think there's even a file Linux when you're on that platform. And we'll do FileMaker data. Oh, it's going to yell at me because I typed the wrong character. FileMaker data. I want to get this going. So we can do save. Didn't yell at me. We're good to go. There's a container data folder. These are a matched pair. So if you have a database in the FileMaker data, you're going to have container data stored in here. Should I have to? How do I do that? It's F:\container data. Let me see if I remember this. Yeah. Cool. All right. So you're going to have not that one. Sorry, that's the backups. You'll have like a database in here. Richard, where's your?
What? Yeah, I'm
post a copy of FMSP.
I was literally just working on that. I realized that was coming, and I'm like,
do it.
I need one real quick. Stand by 1 second.
Your Windows.rcc.com.
Okay, yeah. When I
and then we're gonna see if the CEO can do it because he's gotta pick the alternative upload directory It's okay. Every single one of my clients messes it up. Every last one.
Oh, I
And this includes Margaret.
Okay.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here I got a copy of starting point. I'm going to open it up. I'm going
Yep.
to.
Share with server.
Do I want to share with you guys so you can see this? I guess you want to see this. Let me see here.
I want you to upload it in the background because I'm
Oh.
going to start making backup.
Okay.
stuff.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to share at the top.
Yep.
I say upload the host. I'm going to say, oh, doesn't have a password. Set the password admin 1234. The new password. Oh, I see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Set password. Okay, it's going to close the file and upload it.
Done.
The server is called, what's it called? It's called, you said Windows?
Yep. Windows.rcc.com. It
Windows.
probably doesn't have an SSL certificate, so it may fight you for it.
Ooh, let's
I don't
see.
think I did that.
Waiting for a response. Windows.rcc.com.
Mhm.
And it says waiting for a response. The stream one is responding. The Windows one is not. BVA is responding.
What have I messed up?
Live stream.
We opened the
connection.
firewall. That was yesterday, so I know that's open.
Is it there? We don't think we set up an SSL on that thing.
No, we did not.
Yeah, so. Okay, you're logging into the instances.
I want to see if the firewall's messed up. Security. It's always the first thing that you check. First DNS, second firewalls. And I know the DNS is correct because I did it. 5003, you're open. Cool.
Okay, so
second, nope. Firewall. So we're going to do another step here. This is only necessary when you actually have the firewall enabled, which again, a lot of my on-site clients, their IT people turn it off. That's weird to me. 443, 5003. I think the web ports are already open, to be honest. Allow the connection, next. Domain, we're going to call this FileMaker Server. And we're going to hit finish. All right, Richard, try it again.
Okay, Windows. Whoa. Okay, I got a dialog. The connection to this server is not encrypted. Do you trust it? Do you want to go and do it anyway? And I say always permit.
This is why I do it live on TV, so we can do a live demo and see where I messed up. So what step did I just complete that I missed, which is opening the firewall on Windows for the FileMaker server?
The software firewall on Windows. How did you get that again to get that to on the server?
Windows key, firewall. This is the one that you're looking for. There's several different options that come up. You don't want this one because the little shield thingy, because that's Defender. That's like it's Windows Defender basically. Yeah.
So you wanted which one? I say
firewall.
Firewall.
There's like Windows with advanced security, and it's the actual Windows.
Okay, back up. You didn't move them. Go back and do that again. You're doing it with a keyboard real fast.
I am doing it with a keyboard,
and we can't see what's happening. So firewall. Then you went. That's the one we went right there. That's one.
It. Yeah.
And then
Windows
I hit enter. And then it's open. And then you get that. You want to inbound rule. Got it. Okay, cool.
Inbound rule.
Waiting.
New rule. And then I added a port. You can just do usually the web port's open 8443. I put those on there just in case. For example, if you needed to come in and you were going to set up your Windows server to have a ODBC connection, this is incoming using FileMaker Server as the data source coming in from the outside. Okay. You'd open port 2399, for example, or ODBC or JDBC. Then you can just go in and say edit the Windows or FileMaker Server firewall rule to add the port that you need for that feature. Basically, that's why I do it that way. It makes it easy to address.
I'm not getting that dialogue anymore. I told to trust it, and it says waiting for response, and I guess get a beach ball waiting for response. So it's a little.
Not let us do it without an SSL anymore. It may not, honestly.
Yeah.
Welcome to 2025. You are legally required to have an SSL. Thanks.
So Margaret, do we have questions along the way while we're doing this?
Yes. How does FM restore progressive backups? Does it know where to start from the last full backup, or do I have to manually backup by backup?
Your progressives run completely automatically under the hood. You will make no choices on that. The situation where you will use a progressive backup is where it is the best backup for your crash situation when you need to restore from a backup. There won't be anything to choose. It will be a standard restoration that is merely located somewhere else. That's all. It'll be like an hourly, a daily, a weekly, whatever. But the actual FMP12 files in that folder, they're just created every 5 minutes. They're made in a different way so that they can be done every 5 minutes. So you're not writing out, potentially tens or hundreds of gigabytes of data or whatever. That's all. It's a different creation functionality from FileMaker Server's perspective of how the backup is made. Okay, sorry, I'm going to do an SSL here really quick. We're going to go to SSL certificate. We're going to import a custom certificate. This will make Richard able to post appropriately. Nope.
Okay.
Still can't do this. There we
Okay,
go.
now, okay, on this machine, I just gotta, hang on, let me try this. And the FileMaker server is what? 1, 2, 3, 4 is that password?
Nope, password.
It's password.
Okay, sign in.
Password.
Okay, looks like I'm making progress right now on this. It's uploading.
Yeah, I mean, I got the little like pop-up that says this connection to Windows at RCC is not encrypted, and it's like, meh.
Okay, so here we go. Files being processed, uploaded, open. Okay, the file is there and it's running.
Cool. Did you miss the step that I advised on that all of my clients?
Oh!
I would, yeah.
That's why I note it. Everybody and everyone, don't worry. Everybody does exactly what he just did. I tell you to do it, and they go, and then afterwards they're like, "Oh, it went to the wrong place."
Man.
So I'm gonna demonstrate. I'm gonna demonstrate right here. So we got it. It's FM starting point. We got a copy over here. I love it. Unencrypted just means it's not like eared encryption at rest.
Okay.
That means it's open. There's no little folder icon, which means it's not in the additional database directory. If you upload to the additional database directory, there are 2 you can configure. We only configured 1. You can have like 2 different drives for your whole sets of databases or something. Then there will be a cute little folder icon here. I'm going to close and remove this one, and you can try that again.
All right, so upload.
Although, hold on. Are you ready? Are you uploading currently?
I'm going to in 2 seconds. If you
Okay,
want me
I'm
to
gonna
hold.
restart. Yeah. I'm going to unmake your ProMed. Come on, FileMaker, you can do it. We love FileMaker Server. We love when it goes fast. For the demo.
Did you?
There it goes. Okay.
Is it happy now, we think?
Yeah, give it, I don't know, 5 more seconds, then go for it. We were waiting for the admin
Sign
console to come
in.
up. Okay.
Upload.
I'm just gonna say
Oh, I did it again.
So, and this is why it's difficult. There is a
Okay, I'm gonna try this a 3rd time. Okay.
All right, let me close the remote. We'll do it. We'll do it. So someday we will get a perfect demo. This is why live demos are good. So, Richard, why don't you now share your screen?
Yeah, no pressure, right? Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and it's a big screen. Replace share. But what I'm going to do, and I probably can't see this, Margaret, but I'm going to tell it. I should be sharing it. So that I'm going to share, upload to host, hit OK.
Okay.
Then I'm going to pick the server,
credential.
right?
Yep.
And it's admin. Is it password pass?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to hit
Super
return.
secure.
Now, this is, I see uploaded, it's green. I always just slam this. I did this now twice back to back. You have to change this.
Yeah.
And which one do I want?
FileMaker data.
What is secure? Just so I know, it's another.
That is, so I don't know what the purpose of that is these days. That was introduced when they introduced FileMaker Cloud. And you could pre-apply, I'll put it this way, the cloud security requirements, which were they never let you have an unpassworded account. They never let you not have an ear. Couple guest accounts were disabled, I believe. Some basic security stuff like that. So if you try to upload to the secure folder and you don't have all of those things true, it won't open the file, period, under any circumstances. It just won't do it.
Okay, so normally we don't use it. So this one here, Jake, we already had.
Default. Yep.
This one here was already here, but we're not using it. Jacob created this one. I'm going to select this one.
Yep.
All right. Oh, can I hit new folder? Do I want to hit new folder?
That will, I think, allow you to make a new folder within FileMaker data and then post it into that.
Oh, but this is going to go to a different drive because you set that up on a different drive. Okay, here we go. Everyone, 1, 2, 3, go.
Post it. Thinking.
Go, 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 go.
Thinking. Bunk. And there it is. And you can see it on the side.
Okay.
or on my
add-
screen actually.
Hang on, give me 1 second to log in here.
Log in and then flip back
Then
to
I'm
mine.
gonna stop sharing and we're
All right,
gonna flip
perfect.
back to you. Margaret, flip
He's
back to
live. You
you.
saw it go live. All right. And so you can now see, for those of you who are watching it, the previous 2 uploads, we now have a cute little folder icon, additional folder 1. So he's on instead of, so like the default FileMaker, we never moved it. We left the default one where it goes.
FileMaker
C
Server,
drive, data, databases, and then
bases.
data. And so here's the removed copies, both of them that the previous 2 bum uploads, but there's no database in here. There's nothing. Okay. So we go over to live databases. Hey, FileMaker data. Boom, there's the copy. So if he puts an externally stored, external secure or open, it doesn't matter, container, and then posts the file into it, don't do this, it's too much for the demo, it'll show up in here. And it'll be RC data FMS, and then you can even see that's the database that he's got. It's empty because he has no externally stored container and has not done what I just said, but that's where it'll go. You don't have to care about that. You as the server administrator don't have to care about that. You as the FileMaker application engineer do not have to care about that.
Okay,
that
so
is FileMaker Server's job to deal with.
Okay, so I'm gonna do, hang on, I'm gonna quit sharing for a second. We're gonna do this other one, replace current share, go with everything. All right, so I'm back on my new database. It's called Assault Beaver. It's my new super secret database, Assault Beaver. And I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna log in, admin, password, open up the Windows server. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna create a new folder.
You didn't
Beaver.
change it.
You're in the wrong place.
You have to clicky the clicky thing. Yep.
That's why I said new folder.
Nope. You're continuing to make them within the default databases directory, which is on the C drive.
Okay, so how do
violates the
I?
demo.
So you have to select the FileMaker data.
You need to pick FileMaker data and then click new folder. There you go. You got it.
Okay,
Beautiful.
so that's actually a thing. That's not super intuitive.
No, it's super old. It's one of the older dialogues. I mean, it's not. I don't know.
So we have Beaver. The Salt Beaver is
but...
going to go to Beaver headquarters. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, then say upload.
And then you can see it says FileMaker data Beaver HQ up in the top.
Okay.
As a side note, Jacob, should I have been doing this with the stream.atrcc.com
You
this
are
entire
welcome
time?
to do. So that's a Linux server, and we do
Okay.
everything on one big disk.
Got it.
Yeah, it's fine on that one. It's also fine on BVA.
Because they're Linux.
There are also, yeah. The other reason that you can do this, and I want this demo in here just because it's funny and people mess it up. Also, there's a couple things you can do with this. We'll demo them. We're gonna switch over to my screen momentarily and set up some backup schedules.
Yeah, let's do that.
You can do different backup schedules based on which database folder. And that is helpful. I use that on some clients who have a really big file that doesn't need to be backed up that often, for example. Maybe daily is okay for that one because it's a giant data set that doesn't move too often. So we have Assault Beaver, and then we have our FMSP copy, and Richard's on one of the files, looks like. So
yeah, I'm in my
if we
Assault
go in
Beaver
here,
file. Yep.
I'm going to go to this view, live databases, FileMaker data, boom, Beaver HQ, Assault Beaver database. There you go. So configuration, folders, what do we need? Oh, schedules, I'm sorry. So we're going to do schedules. We're going to create a schedule. We are not going to do a script schedule. We're going to do a backup schedule. There's a bunch of different kinds in here for this. Let's do a backup schedule. I'm going to make it hourly. We are not going to put it there at all. That's a terrible location for it. We have a wonderful, previously created on yesterday's stream, hourly folder. I'm being kind of facetious, but so you can do all databases, but this is the point. You can pick. So all databases, yes, wonderful. Databases in folder. Which folder? We have options now. So you can do this one. This is the additional database that we created, but we have Beaver, was it _HQ, right? There you go.
Yes.
So assuming I click next on all of this, we have now created an hourly schedule specifically for the attack Beaver database or any others that you put in that folder. And for the customer that I'm referring to, not by name, what we have is we have a FileMaker FileMaker data just like this, and we have an hourly and a daily folder. And so we just split the databases by how we want that schedule to run. And then we have like a weekly, that's everything. It's all databases, all container data, like all of that. So we'll do this. It's an hourly, so we want to do 24 because that's our normal. Verify and clone are useful. Verifies the file while open. It's like a pause, runs a quick consistency check, everything passes, thumbs up, keeps going. Clone means it'll run the backup and then it produces a clone next to that in this case in the hourly folder. So you'll end up with a full copy of the database and a clone of the database or databases. Third, clone only. That's what it sounds like. It only produces a clone. So in general, this is what we do when a client requests something like this. I have a couple. They will ask for a clone copy of the database on a regular basis. Cool. So we have like a clones folder, a clones backup folder, if you will, and we make a schedule that runs like once a day or something like that, and just spits a clone of all the databases out. That's it. And they can use that for change tracking. So not for the records, for the structure. That customer has had corruption issues in the past and likes to have a good clone to go back to, we'll say. And that gives them that. It's really easy. It hardly costs nothing. You like anything else, you run it in the middle of the night. So whatever.
Okay.
So we do there's no hourly. You can do once, daily, weekly. Weekly is fun. You can pick the days of the week. Daily, we're going to do start time, but we're going to repeat. It's a start with a repeat. We don't want every minute. We want every hour. That would be a little often. Minutely backups. All right, that's it. So we have hourly schedule, just the Beaver HQ folder, which includes the attack Beaver database that we just uploaded. We're going to keep 24 of them. We're going to put it in the hourly folder. Sorry, we're going to output it into the hourly folder. And yeah, and on the hour. Okay, cool. And then we're going to wait, and there we go. Cool. There's our first. You can do more. The key one that I want to demo here also is the actually there's two. So a verify schedule. We don't use this just to be honest, but I'm going to show you how to make one. One of our competitors, yes, it's not Wim, it's who's the guy that does the FileMaker Server presentations at Engage?
Fabrice?
No, he would be a good one too, though. He probably does this. Anyway, he had some issues with FileMaker Server in production where there was, and it's the bug that's about to be fixed, to be honest. There's a forthcoming release. But it was an in production live corruption of the FMP12.
Oh, that was Josh Ormond. He was also mad about that.
Oh,
too,
he had that problem too.
Yeah, the multiprocessor not doing its thing bug. Yeah,
something. Yeah. So he had issues basically, and so was very glad to have the verify schedule. This one is so like I mentioned the other one. You could do like a verify. You probably wouldn't do it with an hourly because it can take a while to complete. This one is loud. You would probably only do this daily or weekly, the verify schedule type. It closes the database, does an offline verification of the file, and if that passes, reopens it. But obviously that means if it's closed, you can't be in it. If you have web services that are talking to your, FileMaker or whatever, none of that can happen while that's taking place. It's a very loud schedule. It can make you sleep well at night also because you can have fairly solid, verification, confirmation that your database is otherwise the integrity is fine. So there's that. You don't need to do too much with this one. I don't know what delay time is. Oh, message to clients. You can even you can pre-yell at them. Fantastic. So if we did a daily at midnight, sounds perfect. And then the keyboard stuff's lost. All right. What did I mess up? Somebody tell me what I messed up. I don't know. Type all databases. There we go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Offline verify. I missed one. There we go. Okay, now I can create it. Look at me. All right, cool. So, and then the other one I want to demo very quickly is a regular backup, but it's going to be a weekly. Just because this one's cool. We do these. or we do these for some of our, actually it's a standard on our server. We do these for all of our clients. They are used less often than most of the others, to be honest, but they're useful for audits, actually. And specifically in situations where, and I promise this happens a lot more often than it should, somebody deletes a critical record somewhere and then doesn't notice it for a month. I have had more requests over the years for Sally deleted the key project record of a critical client, and somehow no one noticed for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes.
I continue not to be clear on how that can occur in practice because of all of the previous words I just said about how key the client is and all of these other things. But it happens. It happens not not completely rarely, honestly. And so yeah, so we put these on all client servers. I usually run stuff super early in the morning on Saturday, for example. It doesn't really matter. I think Richard in one of the previous streams said, late on the Friday.
Yeah, I tend to 11 o'clock that
Yeah.
way, because sometimes I would still be working at 11 o'clock, but the customer would be gone. So then I could, kind of see it and verify it was doing its stuff.
Yep.
I by 3 in the morning on Saturday morning, I want to be in bed, or at least that is
Right.
my goal. So yeah.
Yep. So, and that's key. All backups that we usually do, standard recommendations from RCC. At this point, and on modern FileMaker Server, we turn the progressives on. We leave them at default, which means there's a couple copies sitting around, and they're made every 5 minutes. Don't worry about it. 24 hourlies, 14 dailies. That number could honestly be turned up, but most people don't need to. 13 weeklies, approximately a financial quarter. For off-server backups, we'll also sometimes keep monthlies or something like that. But those are for like, we need to go back and review, a database we deleted 3 years ago type questions. So another one, not backup related. This one's kind of annoying to set up, honestly, because it requires all the SMTP details. I highly recommend email notifications for any and all FileMaker servers. They're a little annoying. I've complained at Claris about them because there are some that are just almost always pure noise. However, when they're not, they are critical because it will tell you things like your server's running and it tried to run a backup schedule and there were no databases open. Yep. Okay, if you aren't expecting to be in the middle of a maintenance window, that means that your server's down. And what that actually means is that this setting just saved you in a crash.
Yes.
And so there's a few different emails I absolutely never ignore. That's one of them is a backup tried to run and there were no open databases. That's like funny most of the time, except that it often happens, if it's not like a Saturday at 3 a.m. because, Windows updates are running or whatever, something like that, the maintenance windows for your people or for your IT department or something like that. Okay. But if it's outside of one of those situations or one of those time periods where you're expecting it, it usually means something crashed. And it came back up again and it didn't open your databases. And that's good because it means you can jump in immediately, put your business back up and running by restoring from a backup. Restoring to the latest backup. You may have to go read some logs to figure out which one's, the ideal one there. But that's your key, immediate task. Gold every time. So we did the SSL earlier. I'm going to do ours is expiring in 24 days. I have a fresh one, but I have to go install it everywhere and all this stuff. If you do on Windows, a key point here is, and I think if I turn this on, it yells. Yes, it does. So you can do this. You can follow these directions here. This is for enabling web presentation engine that runs in Java that undergirds WebDirect. So if you need WebDirect, you're going to turn WPE on, and then doesn't matter what order you do it in, but you're going to flip the WebDirect thing toggle on as well. You can use Adoptium OpenJDK. It's great. It's what Claris recommends. It's not dissimilar. We use Amazon Corretto. Same thing.
Okay. So Adoptium is the one that they talk about. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Difference doesn't matter too much, honestly. However, it's weirdly installed. You post the zip of the thing to it, and it handles it for you basically. It's fine. Data API, you can decide if you want to turn that on. We generally recommend it, or generally do it, actually. We generally turn data API on. Always the question, there's no data listed here anymore. So if I turn this on, there's no gigabytes. That's because they deleted the gigabytes. There's no gigabytes anymore.
That did come up, I think, on Monday. So yeah.
Yep. There used to be like a megabytes used or something listed here.
Yeah.
It's gone. Plugins, if you need them, they're here. You got to turn them on if you're going to do any kind of FileMaker Server. Specifically, this would be the script engine. So you're running PSauce and you need to like use 360works email or use Monkey Bread, inside PSauce or something like that. You have to enable it before you can even load it up. First thing, just a thing to know. ODBC, you'll know that if you need it. OData is pretty new. Current version is actually pretty exciting. Next version is going to be even more exciting. OData is a industry, not FileMaker so much, but hey, we have it now, so I guess it is. Industry standard way to have do data exchange between like systems that don't otherwise talk to each other, which is pretty cool. Lets you integrate interesting stuff with FileMaker, or lets you have other things that don't know what FileMaker is and have never heard of it talk to FileMaker. And it doesn't have to be ODBC, which has all kinds of kind of old software type problems with dropping connections and that being a problem and this kind of stuff. So like it's fine, but yeah.
We have a series on that if you want to go figure out more about it. I think we did like a week
Yes.
on it, like 6 months ago.
Yep.
We have a question
Those
real
are posted.
fast.
Go for
If
it.
a client left open the database, the verify will close it? Question mark.
Yeah, the verify schedule, correct. It will. It will kick your client in a forcible fashion before it goes down. The one where it's a checkbox inside the schedule, let me go so I can show you what we're talking about here. So like this hourly one, I'm just going to edit it so we can look at it. There we go. So we're editing our Beaver HQ back up. So if you do verify like this little checkbox inside the schedule, it won't kick clients. If they have the edit thingy open, in Pro or something like that, or they're changing stuff, that's fine. It'll pause the database. Normal pause. It pauses all writes, does the little check, and then if everything goes well, just keeps going. Writes the backup out, whatever. You're good. If you do the verify schedule, whoops, I keep hitting escape and then it not doing what I was hoping for. Cancel. I have to hide the meeting controls. Cool. So if you do the verify schedule, that's this thing, schedule type verify. Yes, it will absolutely kick the client. And you have a delay time 2 minutes. It'll wait up to 2 minutes. And if they're not, we'll say disconnected by that point, which if they're like in an edit dialog or something, Pro won't kick itself. Then it will be disconnected by the server. Correct. You will lose uncommitted changes. Correct. So.
We have a question, but it's more of an FM Pro question. So.
Okay. Well, if it's reasonably, does that have something to do with networking, Margaret?
It's about license certifications and how FileMaker recognizes licenses.
Yeah, correct. Lynn and Austin is asking about Pro installs, and fundamentally it is where does FileMaker Pro look for the license certificate, because FileMaker Pro looks for license certificates just in case it can like help you out and vacuum it in so you don't have to go find it on the hard drive or hunt it down or whatever. If you're putting it on the desktop, it's never going to find it because that's not where it's looking. It is only looking in the downloads directory, and it is looking specifically for license cert.fm cert. And the reason I say specifically is because if you, like me, have 27 old copies from previous installs of Pro on old operating systems and 7 different previous FileMaker Pro editions, it will be pulling some ancient license cert that may not even be the same license, that is probably expired and doesn't work anymore. And it will throw some kind of error at you and it will be very confusing. And that's because it's pulling the wrong one. Politely keep your downloads directory cleaner, but realistically prepare and get the stuff out of the way when you're doing that.
How dare you call me out, Jacob?
I'm calling myself out as much as you. I definitely have never had that problem. No.
Never, ever.
But fundamentally, that's what it is. A lot of people also have a problem when they're installing Pro where on Mac, for example, you have to like applications have to request access to your downloads or to your desktop or like stuff like that. And they'll say, no, it's going to require you to go locate that file if you do so. Okay. That's it, simply. So There's one other oddity, I think. Windows, if you are, which is not true of most of our clients, but some of our clients are in a domain environment on Windows. In other words, they're not the administrator on their own computer. Maybe they have the option of, clicking yes and becoming the administrator for software installation purposes, but their own actual user account is not administrator. One kind of fiddly thing that goes with that sometimes is when you authenticate the installer, you say yes to UAC, which is the big thingy that pops up and says, hey, this is trying to install software. Yes? Okay. Or maybe even log in on that thing. You're now that other user. So FileMaker Pro is looking in that other user's directory for the license certificate. That doesn't make sense to users. That's a Windows specific oddity is all I would call it.
Okay.
You'll need to navigate to your own user directory and pull that license cert out. That's all.
Okay.
Just know that. It's a thing to know. So
Another server question. Back on server, default database locations. If I change that to the Jacob folder, will that help avoid the not remembering to choose the right location when you upload a file?
you could do that. You lose features and functionality when you do so, and it's why we don't. So let me show you one difference. So what he's asking is, this is the default database directory. So, in this theoretic example, let's say we turned off the additional database directory. I can't actually do that because their database is open in the directory, by the way. Hey, Richard, I'm kicking you.
Go and kick me out. That's fine.
Richard is ejected.
Yep.
Shortly, I think.
Yeah, it's blinking over here and complaining at me. It says, yeah, you've been forcibly ejected. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. All right, there he's gone. Perfect. So I'm going to close all database so I can do this now. So we'll work the example. So now I can disable the additional database. Okay. So what he's asking is if we were to, I can't even edit it. Oh yes, here we go. Sorry. No, that's the default backup path. Well, I can't change it. There's your answer. Why do I feel like that used to be editable?
It might have been. They've messed with the console a lot recently.
Interesting. Anyway, so in any case, it doesn't matter. I can explain it anyway, but I was hoping to give a perfect example. So we're going to go in here, that path that's C program files, FileMaker. Hold on, let me click through it. C program files, FileMaker, FileMaker server, data, databases. All right, default database directory. And I know what it was. You install FileMaker server somewhere else, then your directory is located elsewhere. Sorry, that's what it really is. Sorry. Anyway, this folder has one big implication other than the fact that it's where FileMaker server is installed. And so if that's like the boot drive, if it's a virtual server that can be small, for example, a lot of even on-site customers do that. They make a tiny Windows disk and then they just don't put anything on it. So first, the biggest implication here, if you are doing anything at all with container data, couple documents, I don't care. But if your business is invoices, you're going to have a few eventually, right? Okay. If you're capturing photos, you're going to have a lot probably quickly. It's 2025. Sure. The container data is stored here too, and that cannot be changed. And so if you need scalability of the amount of container data, don't put it here, because this directory will be backed up. It'll be included in any all databases backup schedule, which is going to be the kind that you're probably doing and most of our clients use for most things. And that means if you follow our default recommendations, you're going to have 51 copies of your container data floating around on disk on the backups drive. If that's a gigabyte, you don't care. Well, once it's 5, it immediately matters, right?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And help you if you have, I have customers with a 1/4 terabyte or more. So like they can't do that. It doesn't work. That wouldn't function. Or they would be writing very, very big hard drive checks, very big. So we don't do that. And that's why, basically. So we end up putting the FMP12 over here on the D drive in this folder. That works great. We can have our Beaver HQ. We can back up the databases separately from the container data on different schedules. So like I said, we could do like a FileMaker data hourly and a FileMaker data daily, and then you just put the relevant databases within that. There will be relevant. So if I go over here, container data, you have so even in here, subfolder Beaver HQ, you still see this RC data FMS. This is a remote container. That's what RC stands for. It's not Richard Carlton.
Yeah, that initially caused confusion at Claris. Seriously.
Richard Carlton data FMS, yes. Anyway, it's remote container. That's what it's short for. And so you have this. So this is that FM starting point USS, okay. And then within this one, we have our Assault Beaver location. So that also applies. Let me show you. I'm gonna turn this on. We did that. We're going to turn this on. It saves the settings. Nice. It saves the settings. Container data. So one thing we never touched here is this one right here. So this is also one of the values of having up to, we don't do this usually, but up to multiple additional database folders, because you can have one that backs up container data and you can have one that doesn't. And this is specifically backing up in terms of FileMaker Server producing a backup on an hourly, daily, whatever basis. All right, we've configured a schedule in FileMaker Server and it's spitting files and things into a location. Okay, this is separate from anything else that you might do. For example, a snapshot on the outside, some kind of zip-based process. That's what we tend to use because we can upload the zips different places, Dropbox, Amazon S3, like whatever, and go all different places. And so that can be a value as well. So if you have low frequency change, I'm thinking of one of our engineers who's building a database for a client that is a document database, but like, I don't mean invoices, it's like manuals and stuff. And so the files aren't going to change. They're not. They're going to sit there forever. We will probably put that database at least inside of one of these additional database directories with its linked container data directory that is not backed up by FileMaker Server, because there's no reason to do that. It's going to get zipped up or snapshotted on a once daily basis, and that is perfect. We will, if they have a disaster or something like that, we just need one old copy. That's all. It doesn't matter. The database, the records, the client data, that's what's key and moves fast in that system. And so that's why you have to think about each of these things and how they interplay with how the business moves, which is how the data moves inside the FMP12s. Again, all of these considerations will be very different if you have, say, big hourly or even 10-minutely, or like I have clients that are, even RCC, like we have our email client for the whole company, our big shared email inbox. That thing runs every 5 minutes. We don't actually care too much about losing data on that one, but like, it's not the reason that we would be doing progressives or 15-minutely backups, right? Like, again, even that one, it's a fast scheduled, often, bringing data in all the time. We still don't care. You may decide that. You may say, you know what? It's an email client. Like, it's all out in Gmail or it's all out in Outlook. Like, it's okay. It's fine. But if it's like an import from a third-party data system, it would be difficult to do it over again. It's something where you bring files in off an FTP, they're deleted when they're done, or like I know some clients have some import processes like that where once the remote FTP thing knows when you fetch the file and it gets rid of it. Cool. But that means that I can't do that import again easily anyway, right? Like I have to put a ticket into support or something to get the files put back. That type of process would substantially increase the cost to me, the business, of redoing that import, because it isn't just, put some, re-enter some data. Somebody needs to go check their email and like take the invoice that they emailed out earlier and like put it back in FileMaker or whatever. Like it isn't so simple. It can be laborious or expensive or require lots of time and et cetera, et cetera. And so you have to think about each of those things when you're deciding how you want to set something like this up. So any final questions?
I don't see any. I think we've actually gotten all of them.
Well, next week is going to be diving into this parts conversation. I actually got that going. I've actually been working on it. That'll be fun for everyone wanting to go through and do a project kind of from beginning to end. It's an add-on section to a database, if that makes sense. So we're going to be adding on to an existing FileMaker system, right? A parts module with warehouse and components, things like that. Something that I have to master and demonstrate that for everyone. Margaret will be there to help me with that. Margaret's in the middle of building it, so you're going to be watching Margaret. wrestle with that to a large degree as well. But we've already talked to the customer. They already expect us to be working on it. So that's very exciting. So anyway, and they're a big chance that they use it because they have a lot of internal, the parts people and the mechanics. I don't want to say necessarily love each other. I think it's a hate relationship kind of, and the goal is to make them more happy because they're each getting what they want easier and faster, and doing it with paper is very 1970s, and so we're trying to modernize them on that. So that's the goal.
Those are huge efficiency gains.
Yes, I always love doing FileMaker against paper. It's such an unfair comparison. So, in my favor. Cool. Any other questions, Margaret? We good? Today's
Nope,
Friday. Everyone
we're
have a
good.
good weekend. Okay, good.
Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. We will see you Monday.
All right.
Bye.